superintendent of Piqua City Schools, and I'm here with some very, very special guests that I'm excited about. I've been waiting for this interview for a long, long time. Back in December, I was telling the 2018 graduates that I got contacted by the class of 1948, and this is their 70th class reunion, which is very, very great to hear that you made it this far and you had this great life. And their message to you guys is that there's hope and there's a lot of great things that's going to happen in your futures. And they really just wanted to take that moment to share that with you. So we wanted to get you together and have this opportunity. So some quick introductions. From 2018, we have Cameron Brown. From 1948, we have Chuck Alexander. 2018, we have Leanna Price. And 1948, we have Bob Fosnight. And 1948, Paul Staley. And 2018, we have Darby Bupp. And then we have Ron Easton from 1948. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of 1987. So all from Piqua. So let's talk a little bit about graduation. So the graduates this year, what are some of the things that you might be a little bit nervous about going out into the world?
Oh gosh. Tough.
Everything.
You know, I think the hardest part is our whole lives are gonna be different. You know, I mean, we've been going to Piqua City Schools for a long time. I've been going for 6 years, and you guys have been going for even longer. And so we've kind of just known the same people for the majority of our lives, and we're gonna go out and meet all new people and be in an entirely different atmosphere. It's a little crazy, a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, my best friends, I've known them since 1st and 4th grade, and now it's like you're leaving them and going to thousands of new people you've never met.
Yeah.
So that's just crazy to even think about.
Leanna, anything?
I don't know. I'm ready for the new adventure, but at the same time, it's going to be so different. Like, you don't really know what to expect, which is just scary. It's unexpected. Yeah.
So class of 48, what advice do you have for them? Do you remember back in the day when you were graduating, what were you afraid of? What were you nervous about?
Well, I don't know as I was nervous. It doesn't seem like I've ever been that type of person to be nervous, but my thoughts were what was going to be up at Heidelberg College. I went to Heidelberg College, so I was quite interested in what was going to happen up there. And that was the only thing I had on my mind at the time.
What did you major in, Ron?
Education. I was a teacher and a football coach.
All right.
9 years.
Paul, how about you? Do you remember what you were nervous about?
I was apprehensive because my father ran a grocery store, and I assumed all through early grades of school that that's what I would do. But then it became apparent that the neighborhood store was not going to last much longer, and there was no room for expansion. We had 2 grocery stores. So suddenly I thought, well, I've got to look for something else to do. And I was a little envious of the students who said they knew what they wanted to do, what college they were going to, what course they were going to take. And I thought, man, I'm way behind. I'm floundering out here. But you all will find your niche. And there is a lot of things that will be expected but unexpected. And a lot of good things are in store for all of you, especially you 3.
Nice. Bob?
Well, mainly, I did not have college in mind when I graduated. My father ran a service station, which was right across the bridge, the Shawnee Bridge. They're on the corner where Piqua Battery is now.
Okay.
And so basically I was adjusted to go in there and work. The Korean War broke out, and I was on close to being drafted, so I enlisted in the Air Force, and I spent my next 20 years in the Air Force.
Wow.
So it was a challenge, and but I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it, and I would never look back to do anything any different again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. Did anybody else serve?
Yes,
They all have.
we all
Thank
have.
all of you.
Wow.
Thank you to each and every one of you. That's a
amazing.
great, we really appreciate that. Yeah. Chuck, you're the ornery one here, so what were you thinking
Well,
when you graduated?
Thank God I'm out. And so that's what the staff said too, I think. But I my dad was a contractor and had a crating business, and I knew I was probably going to go to work there. And so I started taking correspondence courses because I knew I wasn't going to go to college, and I was already in love with a girl I married. We lasted for 62 years, so it was a good decision. And when I went to work, I met a guy who was in the National Guard, a World War II veteran. Talked me into joining the National Guard, and I joined the National Guard, and I was in there from 48 to 54, and spent 22 months in active duty. Got sent to Germany. That was a real learning experience. I met a lot of different things. Got to go to France and go to Paris and see a lot of things in Germany. And I would just tell you that continue to learn, work hard, and trust God. I think if you live by those rules, you'll end up like me. God bless you.
Great advice. 2018, could you just take a moment and let them know where you're going to go to college and what your major is, and we'll see what you guys think about what their start is here, okay? Cameron?
I'm undecided as to my major, but I'm going to Harvard University.
Wow.
Good for you.
Darby?
I'm going to Georgetown University, and I'm going to major in government.
And I'll be attending Butler University, majoring in chemistry.
What do you
See,
think?
you all know what you're going to do. That's nice.
Yeah, you're lucky.
You're going to Harvard, you say?
Yep.
I have a granddaughter who graduated from IU, and she's in Harvard now and working on her doctorate at Harvard.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So I need
Wow.
to talk to you, and you can get to see her.
Oh, that'd be great.
She's planning on staying there as a professor.
Did she
Oh, wow.
graduate from
Wow.
Goodwill?
No, she did not. She
Okay.
graduated from down in Kentucky.
Okay. All right, well, we'll have to make that connection.
Yeah, that's.
The
I'd
one
like
piece
to
of,
ask them, when did you people decide what courses you're going to take in high school?
In high school?
Yeah, when you start in. Let me give you an illustration of what we did. When we were ninth grade, come in from a country school, we sat in the gym at the balcony, and the principal got down and microphone and said, okay, everybody pick out what courses you're going to take and write your subjects in. Now, that's the kind of guidance we got. Now, I'm curious, I know that you people got more than that.
Yeah.
So tell me what they do for you so that you can recognize what you might want to do or be. Do they help you make the decision, or did you just all of a sudden say, I want to do this?
I think that luckily when we first started, when we were freshmen, the path was kind of already planned out for us, and there wasn't a lot of leniency as far as what courses you were going to be taking. I think the only real decision that we made was, for example, in our math class, we could either take the normal Algebra 2 or the advanced Algebra
Advanced
2.
algebra.
So it was kind of along those lines, and then I think that the point when it really started to break out and you had more individuality was junior year, and that's kind of when we could take whatever classes we wanted. And I think that for me, the thing that helped me the most in deciding what I wanted to do and what I wanted to pursue was when I took the ACT, because then you could kind of see what subjects you excel in and what subjects you struggle with a little bit. And I think that, I don't know about everyone, but I've always had a wide variety of interests, so that kind of helped me limit things down a little bit. And of course, our guidance counselors are amazing, and they helped a lot.
Yeah, Mrs. Rosenkrantz is pretty amazing, and we, like she said, we just get to schedule at the beginning of every year. So whatever you decided you were going to do your sophomore year, when you get to your junior year, you can completely change it. And there's a lot of tests like that. There's like SAT subject tests, and there's also I forget what they're called, maybe like career cluster tests. But they just ask you random questions about like what you like to do, and sort of give you like career paths that you might be interested in. And then in our scheduling book, for those careers, it shows you which classes you might be interested in taking based on that. So.
For me, I took physics my sophomore year, and after taking physics, I hated that. And entering into high school, I was like, oh, I want to be an engineer, but physics is a lot of engineering, so I didn't like physics. So then it was which classes did I like more, and what were my interests, and then kind of focusing on my interests and what would be a good job for those.
How many of you three are graduating high school with some college credit already under your belt?
All
All of
us.
us,
All of us.
yeah.
How many college credit hours do you have?
I'm not sure. My college actually doesn't accept my credit hours, so didn't really keep track, but
Yeah.
I have some.
Okay. Cameron, do you remember?
No, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I didn't
Kinda
keep
much.
track of any of
Boy,
that.
Yeah,
I feel
just-
better. They don't have any memory either, guys.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, there's some people who graduate with an associate's degree.
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many from the 1948 had graduated with college credits? Any of you?
No.
Did you really?
Oh,
College.
wow.
Did you? Come on,
You gotta ask the question again. Why? What was
In
it now?
1948, did you graduate from high school with some college credit?
Oh, no.
No, no.
That was not
absolutely.
available.
No, well, they weren't doing that then.
No.
But I have a question for them. To get your college credits, where did you go? What did you do to get them?
For our college credits?
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of partnerships with our school, so I think it's kind of evolved over the years, but when we were sophomores, we had kind of a partnership with ONU, so we got some credit hours from them, and then this year we've taken some classes that are through Wright State, so we got some credit hours through Wright State, and then some classes through Edison.
But you were here at this school all the time?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the teachers will teach it, but then the professors at the college will write the exams to make sure that you know the information, and so then you take their tests. And
Well, the reason I asked, my granddaughters actually went to a college, and then the only thing they would go back to their school, high school tour was to their sports events. And they still graduated from there, but they actually took the credits at a college nearby.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I asked. I thought maybe you were at Edison,
There are some
Some
people
kids
that do
do
that.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people do
Yeah.
leave during the day.
because that would be easy
Right.
for you to go there and attend class and still make your other classes here and activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a grandson do that and helped him immensely at college
Yeah.
at Bowling Green.
Yeah.
We didn't have that opportunity.
No.
Probably wouldn't have taken advantage of it anyway.
Probably most of us all only took a general course in high school.
Yeah. Ron said that they set him down and said, what do you want to take? But I don't think we had to, like you said, elect a field until about the junior year. Then they wanted to know where you're going and what
Sure.
to specialize in.
There were general and secretarial and the college prep, and I took college prep.
See, you knew what you wanted to do, you lucky dog.
So one of the traits that have been identified for this generation is the number of times they'll probably change jobs over a lifespan.
I was
Sometimes it's
thinking
between
that.
50 to 20 times.
Really?
Talk about your job careers, like when you graduated, you finally got your career started. How many times did you change jobs, or did you stay with that until you retired? Chuck?
Twice.
Twice? You had two different kinds of jobs in your lifespan?
Well, in high school, I mean, wasn't
Other
a
than your
job.
high school, yeah.
Well, I sold shoes. That was an interesting thing. I got to meet the public and learn a lot about people.
Yeah.
But actually, that was only a temporary thing. But actually, during my career, I did construction, and then I got into vocational education.
Did you get paid back for all the ornery things you did in school when you taught?
You know, I had a good rapport with my students, and maybe because I understood them, I don't know, but I always had a good rapport, and they never called me Mr. Alexander. They called me Mr. A,
Mr. Ed?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Bob, how
which
about
could
you?
stand for a lot of things.
I changed two careers in the Air Force. One, I was in printing, of which was what I wanted to do when I graduated from high school. I was in printing and working down in the basement of the old high school with
Boss Slaughter.
Boss Slaughter, that's right, yeah. And then after I got into the Air Force, I was into printing there, printing manuals for training. And then all of a sudden they said, well, we're not going to do that anymore, so you're going to have to go into photography. So I ended up being a motion picture editor during Vietnam, with all of the camera and footage coming back from Vietnam, of which I was, at that particular point, I was in the Air Force Command Post in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., putting together a lot of briefing films and everything for the Air Staff and the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Wow, that sounds
gosh.
fascinating.
It's
Pentagon's an amazing place.
It was.
That's the reason we lost the Korean War.
You put together the wrong edited, right? The wrong edited version. Paul, how about you?
Well, I just thinking back, I just counted them on my hand. I think I changed jobs 5 times. And of course, growing up, working in my dad's grocery store from age 8, 9, or 10, I thought I would get one job and that would be it for life. But I did change jobs and only stayed a year or two at each one until I finally found the right one. And the other thing that I want to stress to you three is that you're all set and you've done very well in high school and you pretty much know what you're going to do in college. But even after all of that education, you are still going to be continuing to learn as you get into your careers. It never ends. Otherwise, you will get left behind. As you know, what you learn today, 5 years from now, is not as useful as it was when you first learned it. So continue. And I got my education by, I call it hook and crook. Went to Miami University thinking that that's the right thing to do out of high school, and didn't find that to be for me because I was spending money my own money that I had earned and very little of my parents' money, and I thought, ooh, this is just a continuation of high school and I want to be ready to go to work. And so foolishly I quit and did go to work, then went in the service and came out and got most of my education, higher education, at nights and Saturday mornings with a full-time job and a wife and 2 kids, and that's the hard way to do it.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point, though, because right now the number one thing in the job market that they look for is somebody with diversity in their background and the ability to change. So they want a diverse person that can change and roll and grow with the company or with the firm that they're with. So even in your generation, that was a really important piece. So that hasn't changed. Yeah. Ron, how about you with your career?
Well, I was fortunate. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, I got a job at Kroger's Grocery. And in the summer, we're between 40 and 50 hours. I worked there a couple of years, and then when I was in high school, I was working at the lumber yard. So that's what, 2 jobs there, 3 jobs, and then can't even count. The summer before, my dad was an iron worker, superintendent, so before my junior year, I went to work as an iron worker. And we built 4 radio towers. 2 of them still exist. One's a Christian, over in Springfield, and one at Middletown. But then after I got out, while I was going to college, I worked at iron work every summer. So, and then even in service, I went to service for 2 years, come back to college the last 2 years. And all the time I was teaching, I'd come home and work as an iron worker. My first job as a teacher was $2,500. I was the athletic director. I was the head basketball coach. I was the head football coach. I taught boys and girls phys ed, and I taught biology. And the executive head told me I had to put my suit on when I left the gym class to go do that biology class. They were a little more strict in those days. But I coached for 9 years, and all the time I was coaching, I worked every summer. And so the last time I got a little upset with the school system, so when I came home on a weekend, I went in and told them I had my oral resignation, and the one would be in the mail. So I worked the rest of my time as an iron worker.
Wow. So you were making about 50 cents an hour with all those jobs.
Well, it was amazing. In 2 weeks in August, when we'd have football practice, so I'd have to quit iron work.
Yeah.
I made more money in 1 week as an iron worker than I made for all my coaching duties that I got paid for.
Wow.
But I think that's changed to the good. I mean, it's a lot different now.
Sure. Did you pick up when he said he started working?
In
7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th grade. When did you all start working?
Sophomore year was my first job.
Okay. Were you putting in 40 to 50 hours as
No.
well? Yeah.
I worked 1 day a week.
Anybody else?
A couple months ago.
A couple months ago?
Yeah.
I have never worked during the school year. I've only worked during the summer. So
Okay.
I would imagine all of us in 1940s was working, doing something to earn a little bit of,
Yeah, World War II.
Most everybody did.
yeah.
Any kid could get a job.
I sold newspapers on the catching the trains coming through Piqua. The Dayton Daily News, I'd get on the train as the train stopped to take on passengers and sell papers. And when I heard the whistle blow, it's time to get off the train.
Wow.
And, all of us, I think, everybody did a little part-time job. We worked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Times were altogether different.
In thinking about talking to the class of 2018 compared to when we graduated, first thing that came to mind to me was that we was born in 1930, which the Depression had been 1 year old at that time, and you people had been born in the year 2000. And then all through our 18 years, we was raised during the Depression, and immediately following the Depression was World War II. And so what we knew was scarcity of everything, rationing, don't waste a thing, save, save, save. And compared to the year 2000 and 2018 when you're graduating, it seems to us that you have so much more material things and schools and help and all of that. But still, we have a lot in common. You still are facing the same decisions that we did. Number one, what school you're going to go to and what you're going to do for your life's work, and also to pick a mate for life. And I was told in college when we was taking courses that by a professor who said, well, all of you think that the biggest decision in your life is what kind of education are you going to have, what kind of work are you going to do, what kind of career are you going to have. But I want to tell you, he said, the biggest decision is who you pick for your soulmate. And I want to tell you from my own experience, that's true. It is the biggest decision.
Yep.
You did say soulmate, not cellmate, didn't you?
I did.
Well, we've been married for 65 years and have 6 children. And you've been married
67 this year.
67.
I think there's, the one big advantage I see that you young people have, and of course we've got the people going to college here, you three, is that when I was growing up, and I think any of the rest of the people in our day and age, you take, my mother had an 8th grade education, my dad had a 9th grade education. There wasn't anything, they never heard of college, they never thought about college. You people are growing up in a generation where college is brought up, and especially if you look like you've got the aptitude to do it, that people are talking to you about going to college or looking at a career. And I think the people in our age group started out, there was none of that around the home, because it was nothing was thought of being done. And I think it gave you a little advantage, but you're going to need all the advantage you can get the way this world has changed.
Sure.
So let's talk about the difference between men and women back in the days. We have two women here that are going to college with great advantages ahead of them. What was it like with women in the workforce and college universities back then? What do you remember about that?
They had limited opportunities. Be a teacher or a secretary or something like that. That was, or be a housewife.
Well, most teachers were unmarried.
Well, yes, when we went to elementary school, by the way, if it was all unmarried women. If you got married, you was no longer a teacher.
It was okay for a man,
Yeah,
but it wasn't
which
for a woman.
didn't seem right even back then.
Yeah.
So
that's a big
times have
change.
really changed.
Yet some things
In
are
our
the same.
lifetime.
We talked earlier about how when you graduated, the Korean conflict was just beginning, and you probably remember when it split and things kind of went south, and we're still talking about Korea. You saw in the late 50s, 60s, all the social movements and racism and those things, and Martin Luther King Jr. and all of that, and we're still talking about those things in today's generation. They're still dealing with some of the same societal effects that you guys dealt with. What are some historical moments in your lives that you remember that are pretty significant that you would like to share with this
Most of
graduating
the
class?
thing I remember, one that still sticks in my mind real clearly, we were in a movie on a Sunday at where the Hallmark's at now in the corner. That was a movie theater. And they stopped the movie in the middle of the movie, turned the house lights on, and said, Pearl Harbor had been bombed, we need to go home. And I can remember, I lived over in Rossville, which is North Main Street. And I can remember all the way home looking for Japanese. It was a scary time. It was a scary time.
And I, in looking back, and we're doing a lot of that at our age, there was nothing like World War II before it, then, or since. What you have experienced in your lifetime is conflicts. U.S. has been involved in conflicts constantly. But the difference, what made World War II different was it affected every single person, man, woman, and children, was involved in some way or another. You were involved in the war effort.
Yeah.
And that's never happened before or since.
Patriotism, it was an all-time high.
Big thing.
But I tell you what I've learned over my lifetime, war is insanity. When I went to Germany, and cities after cities were just absolutely leveled, and there weren't many men. And you just not realize, I thought then, if everybody could see this, we wouldn't have wars again, because it is just insanity. And there isn't any other word for it. And it's too bad that we still have that hanging over, so we can't find civil ways to settle our differences.
Syria is just like that today, too. Total destruction.
Yeah.
Total destruction. It's too bad that we've come to that. And I don't know that there's, I've racked my brain to try and think of a solution, but I don't know what that solution is,
Help if everybody had a sense of humor.
We need more Chucks, right? Let's talk about this generation, 2018, and one of their probably things that they've worried about that you, I would imagine, never had to deal with. In '99, Columbine, the shooting happened in Columbine, and it seems like ever since, I know I lose sleep all the time about the safety of our students and staff and our community, and we are constantly putting measures in place and monitoring safety. But I remember talking to Paul Holfing, I don't know if you know Paul, but he said they used to take their rifles and fishing poles to high school, and they just leaned them up against the wall in the hallway because there were no lockers. They went to class all day and came out and went hunting and fishing after school. And
Absolutely.
So do you have similar memories? I mean, did you feel like you were not safe in schools? Did you ever have those?
Never once. And that really concerns me today, that our schools are a target of those people who are not mentally balanced.
Yeah.
And it's mental illness as much as it is weapons, truthfully.
Sure.
And I don't know what the solution to that is, but we have to identify those people and make sure that doesn't happen. But that's got to be a concern. I understand. In your situation, I would be concerned also, as a citizen and a caring person. I'm concerned because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is the big thing that you have now that we did not have. We thought schools were safe, and if we misbehaved in school, we got a little straightening out by the teacher. But mainly, the teachers didn't have to do that, because all they said was, we're going to tell your mother and father what you did, and that was put the fear of God in everybody. And but always considered the school a safe place. Can't imagine it being like it is now.
Yeah. How many of you got paddled in school? Chuck?
Did you, Bob?
I did not. My mother.
Oh, he's a good
president of
one.
PTA.
She found out right away, didn't she? My kids always ask, Dad, how did you find out I got in trouble? Like, they don't understand the grapevine that goes
No,
on.
it's a grapevine.
Yeah. Just something fun we were talking about is when did you guys have your first television, or when did you see TV for the first time in your lives from '48?
Oh, God.
Must have been 49 or 50 when.
Right after we graduated, it was
Yeah.
around the
And we
late
was-
40s or early 50s.
Yeah, and we were saying that we didn't have it at home, and very few people did. But if there was a prize fight or a baseball game or something, you could go downtown, and they would put a TV in the window so that you could, and people would stand around on the sidewalk
Yeah.
watching the TV.
And how many channels did they have back then?
2, didn't they?
2 or 3,
Yeah.
ABC, NBC, and CBS.
So you spent a lot of time listening to radio, but not so much music. You probably got your news from there, and there were programs and things. Do you have a favorite program from radio you remember as a child?
I didn't have time to listen to the radio. I was too busy having fun.
Well, the big thing
WLW.
was Moon River on WLW at 11 o'clock on Saturday night.
Boy, you need to get a life.
We had the Mills Brothers.
Yeah, yeah. How about the class of 2018? What are some of your favorite pastimes right now? What do you do that's your
Gosh,
favorite?
you know, now I feel like we've kind of moved away from the television because everything's recorded now, so you can watch it whenever you have
Exactly.
free
On my
time.
phone
So
and
I
computer.
I watch Netflix on my cell phone too much,
Yeah.
too often.
You know, I always think new technology is almost a curse because we'll go out to dinner and we'll see people that are having dinner together and they got their phones stuck in front of them instead of talking. That's sad.
Yeah.
That's I think that's part of the curse of new technology, that we're losing our ability to talk to each other like this. This is sad.
And I think that kind of adds to things like the school shootings. I mean, if you think about, not to dampen the mood, but if you think about things like 9/11, I mean, obviously with that information of how different drugs work and how different chemicals work, we could turn things into weapons really easily. And that's kind of really one of the big dangers with school shootings. I mean, we have all this new information on how to make things improve and how to make our army improve, but those things can just as easily be accessed by teenagers. And it's just kind of sad to think about the fact that we use all this new information and then it's being abused.
At baccalaureate, one of the messages, if you remember, was to have conversations, to put the technology away and actually look at people and talk and have good discussions, especially with your family and your friends. And that's true at my house. We don't do that. We don't sit on our phones. We don't go out to eat and do just what you were saying.
Yeah, see, this is really a neat opportunity
Yeah.
for us to sit down and talk to these young people. I feel quite privileged, and I'm sure the other guys feel the same way.
We were gonna text you,
get a
I
chance to
think.
talk.
I thought that was better. How many of the class of 48 have a cell phone? You text?
Oh, I just have the old flip phone now.
Yeah.
Because I can't operate all this other stuff.
Do you guys text?
No.
No.
No?
That's
Do you have Facebook pages?
Go.
Twitter?
No,
Instagram?
I have a printer.
Did you say a printer?
Yeah.
what is that?
Well, I mean, I was online on my computer and would print stuff off and still use my printer to copy stuff I get that I want to share with somebody. Why, is that old-fashioned?
He said Twitter.
Oh, well,
Twitter.
see,
Close, you were close.
see those. For a while in the service, I was a gunner on a 155, and that barrel's about that big,
Wow.
and that's like sitting beside a keg of dynamite when it goes off. So that's part of my hearing problem.
Well, you asked where we got our news, and the newspaper was big as well as radio. But you really wanted to understand the news, you got the newspaper where you could read it, go back and read it again and understand it and so forth. And now the newspapers are all but gone.
Yeah, they pretty much are. You mentioned the Mills Brothers. What do you think about today's music that our class of 2018 listened to? Do you?
They have my sympathies.
What a question.
I don't understand it. I don't get the words even. It's just noise.
I think the theme is all different. It's violence, it's things that we didn't do, and our music was pleasant and easy to understand and easygoing.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't understand our music.
Ninth grade, I had a part in an operetta, and they asked me not to sing.
So what were your dances like when you were in high school?
We were Saturday night at the
We moved more than they do now.
well, the Coke Hall after the football game, and Saturday night at the YMCA. We had a Saturday night dance. We had a little band that performed, and we danced, and was out of there by 11 o'clock, and everybody went home.
Good live music.
Just nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, my girl wore steel-toed shoes, so I didn't keep stepping on them.
About cars, did you have cars when you were in high school? Did you have to get a driver's license?
Very few. If somebody had a car, boy, it was loaded because he'd give a ride to everybody. No, we didn't have cars.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Very few cars.
When do you remember getting your first driver's license where you had to go, because at first you didn't have to, right?
Pardon?
I remember my grandfather talking about he didn't have a driver's license at first.
Well,
But like the license that you carry with
First,
you.
first driver's license I ever got, we just went up and got a driver's license.
Well, I got one at 15 because if you working for your parents and on a farm or in business, you could get a license at 15.
Wow.
So that was extremely young.
I think I got mine at 16. I think
was
it was
about
legal at
16 too.
16, 48,
Yeah.
But
or before 48.
my dad had a service station, and we had an old 1926 Chevrolet Coupe, and Dad was working, and Mom said, I want you to take your dinner down to your dad. And I said, I don't want to walk clear down there. And she said, well, just take the car. I was scared to death.
What questions do you have for class of 48? What do you wonder about back in their times?
You know, we all walked to school.
Mm-hmm.
The only ones that rode were the bus. The people
Yep.
lived out in the
That's country
country.
kids, yeah.
They rode the bus. They're the only ones that had a cafeteria to eat in. All the rest of us either packed our lunch and walked. I walked from down at St. Boniface School to high school. People from Shawnee walked to high school. People from all over
Well,
town
everybody did.
walked to
Yeah.
high school. Everywhere.
Now, someone shared with me that back in the day, if you rode the bus, maybe the bus didn't get out in bad weather, but school never got canceled. If you walked, school was on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Only the buses maybe didn't go out and run, so there
Boy,
was never a delay or cancellation.
No.
I can't recall the buses not running all the time I went.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city kids
They had
never
the
got a
big
day
storms
off.
afterwards.
The farm boys might get,
I don't remember them canceling the buses
I
back
don't-
then.
Oh,
well,
I
of
didn't
course,
know
Ronnie,
they had
I lived in
canceled.
No,
town,
they-
so I don't know.
Didn't matter what it was, we went to school.
Yeah.
I
It
didn't
was-
always stay there, but I went.
Well, I talk to my kids or grandkids, and it sounds ancient when I say that, but we lived on Park Avenue, so for the first 6 years, I walked a couple of blocks to North Street School. Then I walked 3 or 4 blocks to Wilder, and then I walked 4 blocks to the high school. So I never, in fact, I would, at North Street, the first 6 years, we was just catty corner a block and a half or so. We'd play in the yard until we heard the school bell ring, and then I'd take off and make it there in time. And now that sounds like way, way back, but it was normal at that time.
Yeah.
Do you all have class rings?
I don't.
I didn't buy one.
I think we all had class rings.
Yeah, that was a pretty much thing to do.
My girl had mine.
Oh,
Well, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
do they do that now?
No,
No.
not with the class rings.
No?
I don't think there's really anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't really think of anything.
Well, I thought about meeting with you and talking, and I knew that we would, on your part and our part both, concentrate on the differences of 70 years. But also, there's far more similarities than differences. You're facing and doing the same things, only you may go about it in a different way. But basically, they're the exact same things that we did in every generation. You know, we look back 70 years, that's 3 generations. You know, our kids, our grandkids, and you are our great-grandkids' ages. So.
And I got a great grade.
Oh,
Wow.
gee.
Show off.
Any questions for the class of 2018? What do you wonder about their generation?
How fearful are you of school, of violence in school? And, you know, we haven't had that many shootings at colleges, but we have had some. Are you concerned about that, or you think that won't ever happen to me?
No, I for one am very concerned about it. Like it's definitely like, really scary, and like sometimes you kind of go to school and it's like I don't know, right after one happens, like right after Parkland happened, it was kind of like going to school like there was just a little more fear, and like people would talk about it, and then we have like the active shooter drills, which like sort of get it in your mind, so then you're like this could really happen like at any moment, and you like wouldn't know. It's pretty scary to me.
Yeah.
Has-
I think that the problem is people don't really take it seriously. Like, we have a lot of people that write jokes about it on our bathroom walls and stuff,
Oh,
and
gosh.
it just leads to a lot of problems. And I mean, personally, I'm guilty of that. Like, I could never consciously think, oh gosh, what if this happened to me right now? It just never really comes to mind, but I think that as a society we should be thinking about that, because if we don't, then we're not going to take it seriously and it's going to keep happening.
But to me, it's sad that you have to think that way.
It is.
That was my question. Do you ever consciously think, oh, if it did happen right now, what door would I go
I
out?
do.
What
Yes.
table would I get
absolutely
under?
think
Yes.
that. Yes.
Well, when you're in the service, you think about that, and
Yeah.
you think about what would I do right now if it happened the next second. And I just can't vision that you people thinking about that in high school or grade school.
And it's changed because I was a principal when the first shooting happened, and at that time, our training included running and hiding. And now, enough have happened, unfortunately, they study each one and they continue to collect statistics, and then they give you information on what's the best strategies. And now, you do kind of hide, but you get prepared to not only find the exits like you talked about, but also to fight back.
Yeah, I think.
And it only makes sense, but initially, it made sense to hide. Now, it's changed and evolved as we go through, so we're constantly looking at the new training. We train our teachers every fall. This year, our teachers are learning how to train their students. And we used to have tornado and fire drills when I was a kid, and now we have those drills plus your active shooter drills, and you're constantly teaching everybody how to respond in those situations. And technology even has changed that, because now people want to know exactly what's happening, when it's happening, and sometimes false information getting out makes it even scarier for people. So we try to make sure we're getting accurate information out in a timely manner, and also keeping kids safe and focused during that moment. So,
Do you have teacher carry
no,
laws? No.
nope, we do not. We have a lot of intelligence that is out there that we don't talk a lot about because we don't want to reveal all that.
Good.
But we also have proactive and we have reactive measures all in place. And then this summer, we've got some new construction that's happening at the high school year as well as the junior high, because those buildings were built prior to Columbine. They weren't built with any kind of safety in mind. They were open to the public, and we know now that's not the best strategy. So we don't want it to be a prison. We want it to be comfortable, but we want it to be safe. And we've met with designers and construction people, law enforcement, a lot of experts for a year now designing a new entryway into the schools to make it the safest that we can.
You know, one of the things I learned in the service was we can teach you to shoot, we can't teach you to kill. And so even if you're armed, you don't know
Yeah.
what you can do until you're faced with that situation. And you think you might do one thing, but it's a altogether different situation in reality. And so all you can do is prepare yourself best you can.
Yep.
As a follow-up question to that, I'd be interested in what you three think about the reality of that, and would it have, or has it had an effect on maybe you choosing a career of being a teacher because of that? It's different now. As a teacher, you would be in that environment. never, you're not, any of you thinking about teaching maybe, so you haven't thought about it.
Not really.
Yeah, that really hasn't, because I just wasn't, I knew that's not what I wanted to do, so I haven't really
Okay.
thought about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a little kid, I always imagined being a teacher, but I think that as time goes on, it's just not as realistic an option for me.
Well, the dangers in the workforce are basically the same today, too.
Yeah, it's
Whether you're
everywhere.
working in a factory and
Or an office, or a
somebody-
bank.
Yeah, somebody
any place
comes
else.
in and for no reason at all, or they don't know the reason, just start shooting away.
People don't have business carrying firearms around, period.
What's some of the greatest things that's happened in your life? What do you hope happens for them as they grow up and get to their 70th class reunion? What do you hope happens for them?
I hope they make it to 2088, then they can come back as 70-year-old students. And
Well, I really think that if you're fortunate enough to marry the right person, that really is a blessing. And it's really hard, apparently, but it wasn't for us, but not everybody's that fortunate, but that's a big decision, and I think that's one of the life's most important decisions. And
Well, I think that all three of you have a better opportunity than there was in the past. For the different reasons. Women had a glass ceiling, and black people of color didn't have much of a chance. And I think now, all three of you, if you work hard and you've got the ability, you're going to get where you want to go. And I don't think those same opportunities were out years ago, even in this town. So I hope that you get where you're going and it's successful. Good for you.
now, you're concentrating on now and what you're going to do in the next couple of years. But have any of you ever thought about what is your life's goal? What's your final achievement you want to make?
Oh,
Or is
gosh.
that too high?
It's too far.
That's pretty far away.
they want to live to be as old as us.
Yeah, that's a good goal.
I don't know, like, eventually I want to become a pharmacologist, which is like making new drugs, and like ultimately my goal is to make new antibiotics for like the ones that are becoming, so they're not as effective because people are becoming immune to them. So like I think my goal is just to like succeed and actually either help make one or ultimately make a new one. So I feel like I've helped society as a whole, not just myself.
Do any of you consider what you want to do because it's the amount of money you'll make? Does that ever come into consideration? I want this job because it's going to pay big money, or you just?
Or happiness.
I mean, I don't know if I've really thought about a job necessarily as bad as it seems, but just really what I've been interested in studying, because I'm really just trying to think the next 4 years. And then once I decide, this is what I'm interested in, then I start thinking about careers.
I think that I kind of gauge things off of the impact I would make instead of the money that I would make. So I was really trying to consider jobs that if I pursued that, I could really just make a big impact on other people's lives. And I think that's why I chose to be an attorney. And that's before I took my ACT, I considered doing surgery before I discovered that I'm terrible at science. But that's kind of how I was looking at things. And I think that those two things kind of go together, because the higher impact that you have on someone's life, the more you're going to get paid for it.
The best job I ever had was the least paid job I ever had. Teaching is really rewarding, but I kind of still believe that teachers are born and not trained.
Yeah.
Either you really like to teach and you have that natural ability, or you don't amount to much as a teacher. And there's some of those in the system, but most teachers are really dedicated to what they're doing, and we're blessed to have them.
But they did point out a difference, that they're interested in your careers and what you can do. But I think in our day, we was overly concerned with getting a job and getting some money and being supportive of
family.
ourselves and the family. I can remember as a teenager in the wartime of World War II, where guys would go into the service and or WPA or CCC just to make money and send back to support the family. Because when they were 16, 17, 18, that was expected. So we was more, I guess, anxious to jump into the workforce and make money, and you have a longer range approach, which I think is good. But also, you have some lofty goals, and the only advice I could give you is that to achieve those goals, most generally, with no matter how much education you got to be willing to start at the beginning and work yourself up to that point. You normally don't just step in
Right.
at the top. And if you're willing to do that and have the proper education, it'll all work out for you.
And take advice along the way.
Yes.
Take advice along the way.
There'll be
But
lots
not
of
more
people to
people.
help you. There will be a lot of people that has helped us and influenced us to make our decisions. And I think that's the thing, that you never know what's in your future, but you will get a lot of help from a lot of people. And then the greatest joy is you turning around and doing that for others. That's even better.
You've talked a lot about the importance of finding that right soulmate. How old were you guys when you got married?
21.
21.
23?
Which time? 22 then.
First time.
How would you guys see yourselves when you first get married? I know that's a way off, but what do you see? Is that something you want to put off for a while and get your career started, or do you think?
Ultimately, I want to be out of school. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to be done with
Yeah.
school before.
Yeah, I thought like 25.
My parents were, I think my dad was 31 and my mom was 30 when they got married. And it's a little bit of a bad situation for my specific family, just because now they're a little bit older with me being in high school, and I have a younger sister, so they're going to be a little bit older when she kind of grows up. So it hurt us in that respect, but I think that it was nice because they were both really independent when they came together, and that's something that I really want.
Well, that brings back a comment that brings back a thought to me. I thought that I was probably the youngest in my class, our class, but there's a couple that was a few months younger than I was. And I grew up with the fear that since I'm the youngest and my parents therefore are older than them, my parents are going to die before theirs will.
Really?
And isn't that weird that I would
Yeah.
think that? But I did.
I thought you looked like you were the youngest.
That's because you got hair.
By a few months.
Any last great advice for our class of 2018 graduates?
Set your goals, go for them, and don't look back.
Be honest and work hard. Do your best at whatever you do, and you'll be satisfied with yourself. Always give your best.
I'd say never stop learning. Work hard and trust in the Lord.
Yep.
I think morals are so far down in this country. If you can do anything to bring them back, it would be great.
Nice. 2018, anything you'd like to say to our special guest?
Gosh, thank you.
Thank you for the,
More
the
than
advice, the perspectives. It's nice.
It's worth what you paid for it.
Well, I look back, I was talking to these guys earlier. When I look back, I don't know, it's been probably 2-3 months ago, we were starting to plan this 70th class reunion. And all of a sudden it came to me. They figured, what are we going to do that's different? And I toyed around a lot of things, and I thought, well, this is exactly 70 years. This is 2018. Why don't we see if we can get with the graduating class some way or another? And that set the spark to do what we're doing today. And I must say that in recent days, I'm thinking, oh, have I started something that I shouldn't have done?
We're glad you did.
But
and
I'm glad we did.
for the class of 2018, for your sake, they'll be here tonight at the meet and greet, so you'll have to
Awesome.
come and see them, and they'll definitely be at graduation. You'll come off with your diploma, and you won't trip on the stairs. I mean, you'll see these gentlemen smiling at you, and I hope that you'll reach out and shake their hands and remember them always, because I've just been so excited since December, just talking to them and just building up to this moment. So, my last question: you're going to get to your reunion, and you're all going to tell stories about the good old days. What's the orneriest story Chuck's going to tell you guys? What did he do that was ornery? I know there's some good story out there. Chuck, what's your orneriest moment in school?
Well, I think I already revealed it. I played hooky my senior year several afternoons during the week. They frowned on that, and that when I had to go back to study hall, the teacher, Pop Richardson, said he'd made me make every bit of it up, and I told him how I felt about that. So that was probably my orneriest time.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you at graduation.
Thank
You
you.
have our very best wishes, kids.
Yes.
Yeah, you do.
Work hard, you'll do well. You've got advantage, you're a lot smarter than a lot of your classmates, so you got a head start on everybody, but make sure you use it. That was a gift from the Lord, so make sure you use those talents to something positive.
Now, here's the 3 outstanding members of the 2018 class, and we're trying to tell them what to do. Come on.
No, we're advising them.
You bring a lot of wisdom, though. Bring all those years of experience. So. They'll be here someday.
I want to thank you for how
Yes,
gracious
thank you very
accepted
much.
us and allowed us to
Very much.
participate. This has been a real treat for all of us,
It
right?
has. It's been special. And
We have others that would have liked to come, but because of their physical conditions and things, just
They're too old.
impossible. You know.
They're not as young as Paul over there, right?
No.
no,
Speak for all of them. No.
All right. You two especially, make sure you brush your hair on graduation night, okay? You want your
Well,
nice-
we're too tall for our hair is what happened.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you for the kindness.
If you get